This summer we have been in a message series about attitudes, and we're really kind of coming to the close of that. Next Sunday I'll conclude the message series, and we've been looking at what I've kind of called wilderness attitudes and promised land attitudes. And the wilderness attitudes are obviously the negative attitudes that we can choose to have. And we've been looking at the wilderness people, those wandering in the wilderness, waiting to go to the promised land, because in that story, in that wandering, so many negative attitudes are displayed by the people in the wilderness. And thus we can truly call them wilderness attitudes versus promised land attitudes. And this morning we're going to look again at the people in the wilderness. We're going to look at a passage of Scripture from Numbers chapter 16. And we're going to look at the attitude of rebellion. An attitude of rebellion. And so this is a little deeper than just complaining. This is a little deeper than just discontentedness. But we're going to find in Numbers 16 that a core group of people literally rebelled against the leadership of Moses and Aaron. And so if you'll turn to Numbers 16, or you can follow along in your worship guide, we have this scene recorded for us. Korah and certain Reubenites became insolent and rose up against Moses. With them were 250 Israelite men, well-known community leaders who had been appointed members of the council. So this is not a fringe group. This isn't a bunch of folks hanging around the edges of the wilderness community, but this is core leadership. These are folks who are key and critical as leaders within the wilderness community. They came as a group to oppose Moses and Aaron and said to them, "You have gone too far. The whole community is holy, every one of them, and the Lord is with them. Why then do you set yourselves above the Lord's assembly?" When Moses heard this, he fell face down. Then he said to Korah and all his followers, "In the morning, the Lord will show you who belongs to him and who is holy. And he will have that person come near him. You, Korah, and all your followers are to do this. Take censers, which are coals, and tomorrow put fire and incense in them before the Lord. The man the Lord chooses will be the one who is holy. You Levites have gone too far." Moses also said to Korah, "Now listen, you Levites, isn't it enough for you that the God of Israel has separated you from the rest of the Israelite community and brought you near himself to do the work at the Lord's tabernacle and to stand before the community and minister to them? He has brought you and all your fellow Levites near himself, but now you are trying to get the priesthood too." And he's referring to what had been given to Aaron. "It is against the Lord that you and all your followers have banded together. Who is Aaron that you should grumble against him?" Then Moses summoned Dathan and Abiram, but they said, "We will not come. Isn't it enough that you have brought us up out of a land flowing with milk and honey?" And that, of course, is then referring to Egypt. Really? Really? You know, the biblical witnesses, they were slaves in Egypt. But now all of a sudden Egypt is flowing with milk and honey. "You brought us up out of Egypt to kill us in the desert. And now you also want to lord it over us. Moreover, you haven't brought us into a land flowing with milk and honey, or given us an inheritance of fields and vineyards. Will you gouge out the eyes of these men? No, we will not come." This is rebellion. This is absolute rebellion. And they have chosen this as their primary attitude by the time we get to Numbers 16. Let me say a little something about rebellion, because you know, it's easy for us to come into a place like this and to worship and think, well, you know, I'm not a rebellious person. I'm not a rebel. And so let me just say a few things about rebellion that I think will give us a little context and hopefully will put us in Numbers 16. You know, the most dangerous thing we can do with Scripture is keep it at arm's length. And say, that's not about me. I'm not in that story. No, we are in Numbers 16. And so just a few quick things about rebellion. One is that rebellion exists in every human heart. Every human heart. And all we have to do is go back to the early chapters of Genesis where we see this wonderful creation story, the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve are there, all is well, all is perfect, all is as it should be. They can do everything they want to do except one thing. One thing. That's all they had, one rule. That was it. And they rebelled. They couldn't keep it. Genesis is theology. It says a lot to us foundationally about the nature and character of God, but it also says some things foundationally about you and I as human beings. And one of the things that emerges quickly in the creation narrative is that you and I have in our nature a rebellious heart. A rebellious heart. Let's define rebellion just a little bit. Rebellion is knowing what God wants us to do and refusing to do it. Rebellion is knowing what God wants us to do and refusing to do it. So when we think and kind of receive that as being the working definition of rebellion, I don't know about you, but now I can kind of see a little bit of me on the rebellion side of things. Knowing what God wants us to do, but refusing to do it. And you know, so many times in the witness of Scripture, that attitude surfaces. Just think about, for example, Jonah. Jonah knew exactly what God wanted him to do. Jonah knew exactly where God wanted him to go. Jonah knew exactly what God wanted him to say, and he refused to do it. I mean, he's talking about living in a rebellious attitude. But you know what? The same is true of you and I. There are things that are very clear to us about what God wants us to do. God wants us to extend forgiveness to others. When we refuse to do it, we're living in a rebellious attitude. God wants us to love neighbor. When we refuse to do that, we're living in a rebellious attitude. Any time that you and I take the position that, you know what, I know what God expects. I'm just not there. It's not something I'm going to do. That's just living in a rebellious attitude. So before we kind of check out and say, you know what, I'm not rebellious, I'm a pretty compliant person, think about that definition of knowing what God wants you to do, but yet refusing, for whatever reason, to do it. The third thing that we want to say about rebellion is almost always about control. It's almost always about control. And really, that seems to be kind of the thrust here in number 16. As the Levites come to Moses and Aaron, and they're, of course, joined by the Reubenites, another tribe of Israel. But rebellion is almost always about wanting to be in control. And I don't know about you, but I kind of like being in control. I like to think that I'm in control. Right? And when we take that attitude spiritually, that's big time rebellion. Because as believers, you and I are called to live in submission to and under the lordship of our Heavenly Father, our Creator, His Son, our Redeemer, Jesus Christ. And so if we approach that relationship with, you're not in control, I'm in control, we're just openly living in an attitude of rebellion. So perhaps that gives a little flavor to kind of what I want us to be thinking about this morning as we approach number 16, about this wilderness attitude of rebellion. In number 16, we see some causes of this attitude. We see what seeds is it that germinate, that allow and feed and nurture this wilderness attitude of rebellion. And I just want to mention about 4 or 5 of them this morning that come right out of the passage here in number 16. One is jealousy. One is jealousy. The first kind of rebellious complaint, rebellious attitude that's demonstrated here is to Moses and Aaron with the statement, "Why do you set yourselves up above the whole assembly?" You know, the bottom line is Moses and Aaron hadn't set themselves up above the whole assembly. All they were doing was doing what God had tasked them to do, fulfilling the roles that God had assigned them to play in this kind of wilderness narrative. But they come basically accusing Moses and Aaron of having some kind of authority that they shouldn't have, of having some kind of leadership sway that they shouldn't have, of having influence they shouldn't have. And so, why do you, they say to Moses and Aaron, why do you set yourselves up above the rest of the community? Why do you think, you're better than everybody else? That's basically kind of the translation of what's being said here. And so there's the seed of jealousy that's germinating. And it is feeding this attitude of rebellion. Another one is ingratitude. Ingratitude. Moses looks to the Levites and asks them a question. He says, God has given to you a special task, a special purpose, a special role. He has set you apart from everybody else in this community to minister to God's people in the tabernacle, to be His servants to this community. And Moses brackets that by looking at the Levites and saying, isn't that enough? Isn't that enough? To think how awesome it is that God has given to you this unique, divinely appointed responsibility and position within the community. Isn't that enough? And sometimes you and I can have ingratitude. Whenever it is that we look out and think about all the things that we don't have and then refuse to acknowledge or dismiss or belittle the blessings that God has brought to us, you know what? Moses could whisper in our ear as a number 16 kind of person, isn't that enough? What God has already given you, what God has assigned to you, what God has provided you an opportunity, isn't that enough? And so the seed of ingratitude has germinated here and is feeding this attitude of rebellion. Another one is impatience. Impatience. Notice that the people of God say, you know what, Moses? You have brought us into the land flowing with milk and honey. Now, they certainly don't want to acknowledge the reason that they haven't been brought into the promised land is because they could just simply go look in the mirror and they would get their answer right there. But, you haven't brought us into the land of milk and honey. You haven't brought us into the land of inheritance. You haven't brought us into the land of fields and vineyards. We want that now. In fact, we wanted that yesterday. And so this seed of impatience is feeding rebellion. You ever get impatient with God? You may not pray it, you may not say it, you may not verbalize it, I may not do any of those things, but yet in our attitude and in our spirit we think, you know what, that should have happened. This needs to happen. This better happen in a hurry. When we're there, we're a number 16 kind of person. And so impatience is feeding this. How about another one? Blame or distrust. Notice they say to Moses, you haven't brought us into a land flowing with milk and honey. I don't know about you, but I just feel so sorry for Moses. Here in this whole wilderness wandering. Poor guy. I mean, he's doing the best he can. He's doing what God had asked him to do. He didn't want the job to start with, but in faith he follows through. And look at what happens here in number 16 and at other points along the way. And so there's distrust, there's blame. This is what you've done. This is what you have created. This is what you are not doing that is impacting me. And so there's blame and there's distrust. And that's feeding rebellion. And then finally, just another one. Half-truths. Half-truths. Notice that when Moses, a little later in the passage, is addressing the non-Levites that are part of this rebellion, that they say to him, you know what, we're not going to come, right? You've summoned us, but we're not coming. We're not going to come see you. And they say at the end, they said, will you gouge out the eyes of these men? I mean, nowhere did Moses say he was ever going to do that. Nowhere is that ever suggested that Moses and Aaron are going to go around and start gouging out the eyes of men. But they're implying that that's what's being told, that that's what's being heard. And so half-truth is feeding this attitude of rebellion. And you know, we need to be reminded from time to time that a half-truth is always worse than a lie for this reason. In pretty short order, a lie can be discerned for what it is. Right? You know, it might be kind of noodled on for a little while, but at the end of the day, if it's an outright lie, that usually can be uncovered. A half-truth always has just enough truth to slip in. And so we have half-truth here. Things are being said about Moses and Aaron that aren't a total lie. Are they upset? Of course they are, Moses and Aaron. Are they going to gouge out men's eyes? Of course they're not. So we got a little bit of a half-truth going on. That seed has germinated and has contributed to this attitude of rebellion. So I want to just kind of pause and think for just a moment. Are we anywhere on that list? Impatient, blaming, ungrateful, jealous, believing a little bit of half-truth every now and then? Because I want to tell you, if we're on that list, spiritually speaking, we're easily going to slip into living in an attitude of rebellion, knowing what it is that God wants us to do, but you know what, just refusing to do. Refusing to act on it. Refusing to live within His expectations. And that's really what we're talking about here in number 16, and about this attitude, this wilderness attitude of rebellion. I read about a mom and a dad that were raising a teenage son. And it was a little challenging. And I know that's shocking to hear that teenagers would be a challenge. But anyway, this was a rare occasion, rare thing. But anyway, they were being challenged by their teenage son. And so the dad took his son out in the backyard. And they had a fence that kind of ran around the perimeter of their backyard. And he took his son over to where a post was, and he said, son, this is what we're going to do. He said, maybe if we kind of have a little bit of a visual aid here, you'll get the point. He said, every time you knowingly and willfully do something that your mom and I do not want you to do, or you violate a rule or a standard that we've set, I'm going to come out and I'm going to put a nail, just hammer a nail just a little ways, into the fence post. And he said, anytime that you do and respect and honor what we've requested, what we've asked, and what our expectations are, he said, I'm going to come out to this same fence post and I'll pull a nail out. And we'll see how this goes. Well, the teenage son, listened to his dad and did whatever. And so he didn't care. And so after, 5 or 6 months, the post was loaded with little nails just sticking out of it all over the place. And the son was out in the backyard one day and he kind of looked at that post, and it really didn't have a visual impact upon him. And so it began to kind of seep in on what was going on, and how he was living, and how he was behaving, and the choices that he was making. And so he decided, okay, this thing's loaded up pretty good. So little by little, he began to kind of recalibrate his attitude and his behaviors and his choices. And the dad honored exactly what he said he would do. He, pull a nail out, pull a nail out, pull a nail out. And after about 6 or 8 months, this post that had just been loaded with these nails now only had a few nails. The post wasn't going to be nail-free, but there were just a few nails. And so the dad and the son were standing close by, and the dad made a comment about the post and how proud he was of his son. And the son looked at his dad and he said, well, I got your point. And he said, but there's one thing I noticed about the post. A lot of the nails are gone, but the marks of the nails are still there.
Amen.
Wilderness attitudes always leave scar tissue. They'll always leave scar tissue. And we see a little bit of that. We see some nail holes here in Numbers 16 that just kind of can remind us about the impact of wilderness attitudes. And just to name a few, relationships are fractured. I mean, here we have Moses and Aaron, who now have this fractured relationship, not because of anything they've done, but because of a rebellious attitude on behalf of the Levites, who have been joined by the Reubenites. And so there's this fracture.